Hello there guys, and welcome to today's video. Today we are starting a brand new Visual Basic.NET training course, and this is aimed for the absolute beginner. So in today's video we're going to be looking at the absolute basics from installation and the navigation within Visual Studio. If time allows it, we will also be creating our very first Hello World application. So at this time I would like to say that if you have not already done so, please click on the subscribe button and the bell notification. This will notify you when new courses are coming out or new videos are coming out for this course. Now, let's just jump straight into it and let's learn. So let's start this training video off with the installation of Visual Studio. Now, it's actually very simple to install Visual Studio. All you need to do is Google Visual Studio and you would find a download link, which is one way of installing it. So if you've installed Visual Studio before, you can do it this way. The Community Edition would be more than enough for our training videos. The Professional version and the Enterprise version are paid versions, so I would not recommend installing those unless you have the money to buy for a key. Otherwise, the Community Edition is what we'll be working on. Another way of doing the installation would be to go to the Microsoft Docs Visual Studio Install Studio. Now, by default, it'll go to the latest version of the Visual Studio, and as you can see here, we have all the instructions. So what I'll do is I will copy this link into the description below, and you can follow the installation instructions here. First of all, we'll have to make sure that the computer is ready for Visual Studio. Then we can click on the download. We will install the Community Edition. Then we'll select the desktop development, individual components, for example the framework, the language packs, which we will only do probably English or whatever language you're in. Select the installation location, and then start developing. So because there's a lot of help online about this, and I've already installed Visual Studio, I will just leave it there and hope that you can install it yourself. It's quite simple, easy. So let's go on to our second stage, which is actually opening Visual Studio. Okay, so once you've installed Visual Studio, you are eager to get busy and you are eager to learn. So the first thing we're going to do is just have a quick look at Visual Studio itself. Now I have the dark theme. You can go to the project, tools, options, and you can change your theme in your color theme over here if you want to. Otherwise you can pick any of the other colors. They're all nice. They all do exactly the same thing. So I've got a dark theme, and this is what it looks like. It's quite compact. There's a lot going on. You might find that some of these windows might be open, some of these windows might be closed. But don't worry, if you can't find anything, we're going to go through how to find all of them. So in general, you would not have any of these projects that you worked on the day before or recent projects. You might have a blank list over here, and you'll have a list of projects or tasks that you can complete with one-click installation. So the first thing you would want to do is just have a quick look around and familiarize yourself with the areas. On the left hand side we have a toolbox. Normally the toolbox would appear depending on what kind of a project you pick, and there's also a server control. So if you have any server set up, for example the SQL server that you would have installed, you would be able to find it over here under the Server Explorer. In the middle you can see there's a Get Started section, open a project or open a solution, open a website. For example, if you have already created a project or a solution and you want to open that from the folder. Otherwise, if you have recently worked on the project, it'll be in your list under the recent items. If you haven't got a project open or it hasn't been recent, then you can create a new project. And there's a couple of projects that's ready and available right here in your first menu. You can start most of them just by a single click, or if you want to start a new project with your default values, then you can create a new project down here. Okay, so I think the best way to learn your environment is to actually get stuck in it, and let's go and do that. We're going to create a new project, and under Visual Basic, now you might find that your list is compressed like that. You can just go to Visual Basic, and you're going to go to Windows Classic Desktop, and we're going to go for Windows Forms application. We're going to name it Hello World, and we're going to change the location to somewhere where we can add a lot of information. YouTube training, new folder, and I'm going to select that folder, Hello World, and we're going to pick a framework. Okay, so the framework, as you can see, I've got a lot of frameworks, 2, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, and so on. But in this case, I'm just going to pick 4.6.1. And the reason for that is that the framework keeps on growing. It keeps on growing and growing and growing. That means anything that was in .NET Framework 2 is still in .NET Framework 4.6.1. That means that all of these frameworks are already included in the latest version. So all you have to do is select your latest version, even if it's 4.5 or 4 or even 3.5. But I'm quite sure if you just installed Visual Studio, you'll have one of the latest ones. So just pick one of your frameworks over there and then click OK. Okay, so we've now loaded a brand new project. Here's the project on the right hand side. This is the Solutions Explorer. And a solution is basically just a bunch of projects together that fulfills a solution. And that's what a solution is. It's just a bunch of projects. In this solution, we have the Hello World project. And our project consists out of a couple of things. We have a form, we have references, and the application configuration. Now the application configuration, as you can see, contains a little bit of startup information, and the form itself is this area here. Now by default, the moment you create a new project, especially in Windows Forms, you'll find that this form is already ready to run. So I'm going to click Start, and there we go. We've already got a form. Now this form by itself, as you can see, it's a fully independent application. I can maximize it, I can restore it, I can minimize it, I can restore it again, or I can close it. Now that form and that action has already been built in, and therefore it makes development very quickly and very easy. Okay, so now we're going to look here on the left hand side, and here's our toolbox. Now the toolbox is where all of our controls live. They've got quite a range of controls that we can use. But let's say, for example, my window was not open, my toolbox was closed. I'm going to close this toolbox, and now I've got the Server Explorer open as well. I'm going to close that, and the Solutions Explorer, I'm going to close that, and I'm going to close the Properties window, and all the data sources as well. Why not? Just close the whole lot. And then if I would like to find any of them, all I need to do is go to the View, and here's a list of all of the windows that I can view. If there's a window I can't find, it's under Other Windows, and here is a huge amount of other windows we can do. So let's go and put them back. Okay, so the first thing is our toolbox. Here's our toolbox back. Then I'm going to go View. I want to see my, I don't know, Properties window. Let's put the Properties window. And then I want to view the Solutions Explorer. And by default it just pops on the top there, and the properties pop at the bottom. And let's go and add the Server Explorer. And again, it just pops back where it wants to be. But what if I don't want it there? How do I move it? Where do I put it? Okay, so first of all, here you can see I've got the Toolbox and the Solution Explorer on the same area, here on the left hand side. I want to drag the Server Explorer. I'm going to click on it and just drag it. And now you can see all of these new areas pop up here in the middle of the screen. So I can either move it to the right hand side, maybe, you know, just hook it onto here, maybe attach it in the middle or wherever I would like, maybe on the top. Or let's say, for example, I would like to add it to these controls on the side. So I'm going to use maybe that one. No. Maybe up there. How about if I just join it? And you can now see the blue area actually shows where it's going to go. Now don't worry, it's not going to override the Solution Explorer in the back. It's actually going to just attach another tab to that window. So let's go and leave that. And here you can see Server Explorer, Solutions Explorer. If I want to, I can click it and drag it, and now the two pages have swapped from left to right. So that's how you move around with your area. You can put anything you want where you would like them. Here's my toolbox. Here's my solution, Server Explorer, and all of my properties. So that's how you navigate through Visual Studio. Okay, now we're going to create our Hello World application. First of all, I'm just going to drag this form a little bit close because it's pretty big. And then I'm going to add a button. I'm just going to drag it, click and drag it all the way onto the form. And then I'm going to look for a text box. And I'm going to put a text box on here. And then I'm going to pick a label, and I'm going to put a label on here. Okay. Now I haven't changed any of the names. I haven't changed any of the information about them. So if I click on here on this text box, on our properties, we can see this is text box 1. Now by default, it gives every control a new name when you place it on to the Windows form. The reason for that is so you don't have controls with the same name. And later it will become very clear once we look at events. But in this in this starting video, all I need you to know is that every control has its own name. Now, if I want to say Hello World on the label, I'm going to click on the label, and you can see that the label has a property called text. And the current value of the text says label 1. So I'm going to click on it, I'm going to change this to hi, and push enter. And then you can see that the label has actually changed to hi. Now I know this is very simple, but what we have just done is we've changed the label 1's text property to hi. Now we can do this in code. So I'm going to take the button, I'm going to double click on it, and it will open the buttons click event. So like I've said before, we're going to look at events later on, but all you need to know is that every time you click the button, this section of the code is going to run. This is called a sub. The sub stands for subroutine, and whatever you type in between the start of the sub and the end of the sub will run when you click on the button. Okay, so like I said, we want to change the label's text property. So now we're going to say label 1, because that's our label's name, dot text, which is the property. We're going to equal to Hello World. Okay, so as you can see, we are writing a code that says label1.text. We identify the control, we identify the property, and we allocate the new value to it. But why am I putting the double quotation mark on there? Well, it's because we are allocating a string. Now we're gonna talk about data types later on in the videos, but at this point in time, all you need to know is all strings has to be within quotation marks. Okay, let's go back to our form and we run our form. Okay, here's our form. So I expect when I click my button 1 for that code to run. Click on it, and there you can see it. There we go. It says Hello World. Okay, let me close this up, and let's do a little bit more. Let's say I have a text box. Now I want to move the same property So the text box has also got a text property. At this time it's empty. So I want to move the text property from this control into our label. Okay, so let's go and do that. I'm going to go label 1.text equals textbox1.text. What have I done now? Well, it's actually quite simple. I have taken textbox1's text, the property, the value that's in the text field of the text box, and allocated it to the label's text property. It's as simple as that. Now, if I click on run, I can say, hello Jaden. Push the button, and guess what? It's taken the property, the text property from this control and moved it into this control. Very quick, very easy, very simple. Okay, so I think that's enough for today's video. We've looked at basically just looked at how to install it if you want to follow that installation process. Then we've looked at creating a new Windows Forms application. We made a quick Hello World application. We looked at how we can navigate through Visual Studio, especially for the Solutions Explorer, the properties, and the Toolbox. And in our next video, we're going to look a little bit further into other windows that help us and work a little bit on our Hello World box. So until next time, you have a good day, and I'll speak to you later. Cheers.